Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. On today's show, we're joined by Dr. Tracey Leghorn, Chief HR and Health and Safety Officer at SUEZ Recycling and Recovery UK. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me on.
That's all right. Where are you joining us from today? You're at home still, like many others?
I'm at home today. I am out and about in the business sometimes, mainly in relation to my health and safety role, doing COVID audits out on site. But today I'm at home.
Nice. Did the health and safety role mean something different before COVID? Has it taken on a whole new meaning now?
I think yes, but HR has as well. We very much take health and safety very seriously at SUEZ. It's a big part of our culture. Yes, health and safety from group level down has been leading on the COVID situation.
I can imagine. So not only are you dealing with the entire transformation that you're going through on the HR front, but now you've also got that on the other side. That must be pretty challenging for you.
Yeah, it is challenging. I think, though, my background's really helped me in that space because I've spent 14 years working in the NHS in HR. 9 of that was in an ambulance service, where I spent a lot of time actually planning for pandemics and things like the Olympics. So that's really come into the fore over the last year. Wow.
Well, on that point, give everyone a little bit more about your background, where you started. Did HR choose you? Did you choose HR? And your journey to where we are now?
Yeah. No, I started my working life in media and retail initially. I really hadn't got any insight into HR. And then I went back to university as a mature student and mum of a 3-year-old. And I did a module on personnel. And I did the first assignment on that. And I was just absolutely captivated from that moment. It was Professor David Guest, and it was about horizontal and vertical integration of HR and how that can deliver business performance. And I was just, wow, this is great. And went from there, really.
Mm-hmm. What did the first role look like? Was it within the same company and you kind of pivoted internally, or was it a brand new role?
I was in that situation where I was overqualified in HR with no experience whatsoever. And I've been undertaking sort of first line manager roles until that point. So I actually had to take a really big step back in order to secure a HR role. And it was the NHS that offered me that opportunity. I, ended up starting my HR career in the NHS. And from that, I've worked really in every type of NHS trust that you can.
Wow. How long was you in that for, in the NHS? Across different
14 years.
Wow.
Not one solid, piece of experience. I went from sort of mental health, community services into acute, into a primary care trust. They were the commissioners of NHS services when I was at board level there, and then into the ambulance service as well. So I've seen the whole range.
Wow. What is it that you took away from your time in NHS that that's helped you at SUEZ?
Helped me at SUEZ, not quite so sure. There's a lot of bureaucracy in the NHS, a lot of governance in what you can and can't do. I always say that if you can make change happen in a big public sector organisation like that, you can make change happen anywhere.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah. But I stepped out of the NHS and I joined Compass Group in the healthcare sector of Compass Group. They didn't deliver any clinical training. They delivered portering, cleaning, catering services, and FM services. And that was a really enjoyable role because I knew the language of healthcare, but then could bring in that sort of HR dynamic in a private sector organisation. Mm-hmm. That was a fantastic experience for me.
Yeah. Would you say that's the reason you left? Because I hear a lot of people that, like what you said, is that when I said, I say, why did you leave public sector? And they say exactly what you said earlier about it's so hard to make significant change in public sector. They get super frustrating. And then that there's so much other benefits and great, but a lot of CHROs that I speak to that leave public sector, that's normally the reason, because it's so hard to make any significant changes.
It is, it's a challenging environment to be in. But for me, it was about really getting more into a commercial organisation. I'd started my life. My mum and dad never really worked for anybody else. We had our own businesses. And I often got accused of being a little bit too commercial. And so I wanted to step into that commercial space. And the opportunity at Compass, came to me. It wasn't a job that I saw advertised and applied for. It came through my networks that I'd started to build at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And, similarly, really, I left Compass. I was only there a couple of years because I was approached then by PwC. Again, a job that came through my networks, because by then I'd got a bit of a reputation really about delivering large-scale transformational change. PwC had won a big piece of business with the defence sector, and they had done the work to diagnose what the issues were. We were working with other consultancies as well, but they didn't have a lot of in-house capability around actually delivering on the recommendations that they come up with. Mm-hmm. And so I was approached as an experienced hire, as someone who has got experience in delivering transition agendas.
Yeah, well, just immediately when you said that, given your background and experience, seems like a perfect fit. The sector, the work that you do seems perfect. How was that? So that was client side, not was that? So you went from practitioner to clients.
I went straight into consulting. So I went from client side into consulting. Mm-hmm. And actually, that was really helpful with the client that we had, because I had the credibility of I wasn't going to recommend anything that I knew I couldn't be delivered. And often the client forgot that I was a consultant and saw me really as someone really working in partnership with them. I mean, we had some really big stuff to deliver. £3.4 billion worth of savings was the size of the programme that we were working on. And often in meetings, the client would say, okay, if the consultants can now leave the room, except Tracey, she can.
Really? Oh, that's
yeah, absolutely. So I was there for a couple of years down in Bristol.
Amazing. What advice would you give to your peers listening that are considering moving over to the consulting for a stint in their career? Looking back, what advice would you give to them?
Oh, do it as early as you can. It wasn't ever going to be for me forever. I couldn't sell somebody something they even needed. I'm not a salesperson. So
I think you're underselling yourself by even saying that.
But what I did learn was I was on a project working with 100 PwC consultants in every area of HR expertise, and I could just draw on all their knowledge and expertise. It was fantastic learning for me. And I was just sort of there in the centre, creating the transformation, creating the transition plan for that, but then being able to, sort of draw on the best people. So I learned a lot of discipline around putting programmes together. As a consultant in PwC, at the very start of that engagement, you need to know exactly how much time and effort is going to be involved, what the key stages are, what the deliverables are for that project. I'll be honest, until then, it was the Tracey Leghorn way of doing things. And sometimes I didn't know at the start where we were quite going to get to. So, that was very, very good learning for me.
Yeah, so it's giving you a great process now to follow as a practitioner when you move back in. So was the next role after that SUEZ, or was there another role in between?
No, the next role then was SUEZ.
Okay.
I enjoyed it at PwC. I'm sure I would have stayed there longer, but again, the universe sent me the role at SUEZ. It wasn't a job that I applied for. Came across my networks, and from the very first conversation with the sort of headhunter, I was just captivated. And we carried on that conversation. It was the longest, I have to say, job application process ever. I think I had 17 hours with SUEZ.
Really? Wow.
Through the door.
Wow.
But it did mean that I knew exactly what I was, going in for.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a lot about the organisation before I stepped through the door as well, which was really, really helpful.
I'd love to ask this question because I'm sure it must be quite challenging for your peers and I'm sure yourself when you're assessing a company, whether whether it's the right fit for you and your values, your purpose. What type of questions are you asking them during those interviews? Is there some sort of go-to questions that you have to understand, is this the right fit for Tracey, for me and where I want to be?
I think it's about as much understanding yourself as the organisation, so, if you've done that sort of piece during your career around self-reflecting, what makes a good day for you? What ends a day where you feel like you've added value, not just to yourself and to your own learning, but to the world. And that's really important for me. And I think that comes from 9 years in the ambulance service. I do feel that I was helping save lives, and that was really important to me. It made me very driven in what we wanted to achieve. At Compass Group, perhaps a little bit less so, you just that one more step removed. And then really in PwC, I couldn't feel that connection to making a difference in the world. And I was at a stage in my career and in my learning where I feel I can give more back and do that. And so in SUEZ, I've sort of gone from saving lives to helping save the planet. And I think that's worthy of spending my time on.
Yeah, it's important as well, right? Especially when times are tough and things aren't easy, that you have that as your kind of foundation of your why, your sense of purpose, because no matter what's happening around you, whether it's COVID or huge large scale transformation, it's very stressful sometimes, you can kind of lean into that purpose and that why. And
I think the other thing for me is you reach a certain point in your career where you want almost absolute freedom to do things the way you want to do them. What is the scope to bring about change? What is the scope to, sort of bring all your own sort of 20 years of experience from all these different places and see how you can make that work in another environment. And, for me, that's exactly what I've got at SUEZ. I've never had so much freedom to really, bring in some quite big initiatives. And also work on some stuff that's really important to me as well. So around the gender equality, which is really important to me. When you're with a big four organisation like PwC, it's about them and their brand. And I've done my research into women in work, and I didn't want to use that to make money for PwC. I wanted to use that to do good in the world. And at SUEZ, I have got that opportunity. They're absolutely passionate about gender equality, very keen for things to happen in that space, and I can help with that. So there really was sort of an alignment of, the organisation and what I want to bring to the world.
Mm-hmm. What are some initiatives that you've been doing then around that in SUEZ? Because a lot of organizations want to move the needle, of course, but I think sometimes they struggle in terms of what are some practical steps that we can take to move that needle. What would your advice be to everyone?
Well, we're in an industry that is 85% male, and so there is a lot of work to do. So it is really about starting the conversation, opening up that conversation, opening up awareness about the issues. And so I think, being a female leader within SUEZ, I'm the only female on the board in the UK, that was a statement in itself. I've been keen to get out into the business. I need to learn the waste and resources industry. I didn't know anything about it before I joined. But also, I wanted to learn what was happening on the ground and talk to people on the ground, including women, to get their experiences. and then really find a way to connect them. So, we've got a Yammer group that is for our women's network that has now got over 1,000 people in it. I think it had about 100 when I joined. So getting that energy and getting that conversation going in that space. But, I'm passionate about the inclusion agenda in itself, and we've been doing some really great stuff this year around that as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, lots to do. It's not easy to turn that dial, but you just have to sometimes have a bit of dogmatic determination.
Yeah. Did you have to, especially in the industry, as you said, with 80%, did you say 80%?
85%.
85%. Wow. So even more challenging given that.
But also as well, need to sort of really get a good idea of what jobs are available in the waste and resources sector. It's not perhaps seen as the sexiest industry in the world, or maybe wasn't, but actually it has a wealth of jobs and career opportunities within it. A lot of those around jobs that need a lot real focus on STEM subjects. So I've been getting out there into the industry as well, networking and doing some speaking externally to try and encourage people really to think about even applying for our industry. So that is the first hurdle that we need to get over.
Yeah.
And then when they're in the business, it is about developing appropriate career pathways for women so that we don't get sidelined into purely being in support services as opposed to being in operations, because there's more board level posts for people who come through an operations route than there are support services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point though. If people aren't even aware of the roles in the first place, then you got to start there before anything else. I know you're also really passionate about well-being, and I'm sure that's been elevated over the last few months as with COVID and everything that's happening as well. How have you been addressing this before COVID, and then how are you focusing on this now?
Having spent a lot of time in the NHS, I'm very passionate about people's well-being, both at an individual level, an organisation level, but also around public health as well. And I was part of a group that was chaired by Dame Carol Black, who was one of the lead advisors to the government on workplace well-being. I did that for about 5 years. And so when I joined SUEZ, I was sort of very keen to do something in this space, but I didn't want to sign up to a pledge or an external sort of validation situation. So we decided to create something for ourselves. So we got about 50 of our people together and we created our wellness charter and a vision for that around wellness for all. And that's got 8 dimensions in it. It could have had lots, could have had 20, but it's got the 8 that are most important to our people and relevant to our business. And so we created that just at the back end of 2019. And then in 2020, when the pandemic was coming along, and I got a sense of it because, former colleagues that I worked with were being approached by NHS England to help, that, this was the planning that we'd been doing for 9 years as colleagues together, could become a reality. And I think it was very important knowing how catastrophic events can impact people from a time at the ambulance service, that, for everyday people, a pandemic is a catastrophic situation. So what could we do for our people in that space? So we've done a lot around resilience training. People can build up their own resilience. They can. It's something you can teach yourself. And also around mental health and a whole range of wellbeing support. So I do a webinar every Friday with different experts around that. We've had different clinics for areas such as sleep and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And a lot of training put in place as well, so we can make sure we can engage our people that have to be furloughed, etc., and keep those connected with the business. So it's been very much about trying to manage the psychological impact of what's happening and how that might impact different people in SUEZ. And I think that's something that will become a positive out of this situation. We've just accelerated it at a speed that
Yeah.
you perhaps wouldn't have before.
Well, because you'd been doing this before COVID, did you found that helped in terms of like signposting people of where to find information? Do you feel like that you already had quite a significant number of employees that knew where to find these resources?
Yeah, I think so. I think if there are any grey hairs in here, it's from getting it wrong in the past around well-being. And I think the biggest lesson that you learn in that space is that it has to be about what people want or feel they need themselves.
Could you share any of those people with our listeners?
Yes, Simon Richardson of Golden Tree is our preferred partner around mental health. In fact, he's actually been helping us at a group level. He joined a meeting a week or two ago to help with his expertise in that.
Mm-hmm. Why him? What is it about his work that really stood out to you?
He stood out because I have some worries around the term first aid for mental health and worries that people who, first aid in mental health and first aid in physical health are quite different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've got to be quite careful to ensure that we don't place too much on people that actually, they're not professionally or clinically trained to deliver. And it needs to be about, for me, around mental health, starting a conversation, creating a culture and an environment where people will share when they're not having a great day. That's hard in an organisation of 85% male, but you can start those conversations. And it's about peer-to-peer support rather than a focus on, let's train every one of our managers and they can be experts and help people through quite difficult times in their lives. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no, let's raise awareness. Let's have a conversation. Let's help people build up their personal resilience. And when people are struggling, we'll provide a level of support that we can, but we will direct them to people who are professionally trained to help them.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point there. You want it to be part of the culture where you can be open and have those conversations, be vulnerable, as opposed to having to always go to someone specifically trained. But when you do want to signpost someone, you want it to be the right person.
Yeah.
In the right place as well. So what about, I know again, we're talking about women at work, and you've done a lot of research around this, and we've already seen that the impact of the COVID's had on women, particularly. Could you talk more about that?
I mean, COVID, if you sort of look at some of the thought leadership pieces that are now being shared, has had a very much disproportionate impact on women than it has on men. More women have lost their jobs than men. And also, I think we've got to think about, well, what does the future of work look like? And does that actually facilitate or frustrate women's employment? At the early part of COVID, when everyone started working at home, a lot of those people were women. And people were talking about it as if it's the panacea to all the women and work issues that have gone before. And I had, some hesitancy around that. I think what's now coming out is that actually there are big concerns around the fact that women have taken on even more childcare responsibilities than they had before. And we've got to be careful that when we transition back to the workplace, that we don't end up in a situation where women predominantly choose to work at home because they can combine it with childcare, and men return in bigger numbers to the workplace, where actually we know the networking happens, the learning happens, getting on key projects happens, which would mean that perhaps in the longer term women would be disadvantaged. So I'm very passionate that we have this conversation now, so women make informed choices, and so that people in positions like myself and organisations do put in place some mechanisms to make sure that balance of opportunities is available to people, whether they're working at home or whether they're actually present in the office. I don't think that's going to be easy.
Yeah. I was just taking a moment to think about my own experience, and when COVID hit, a lot of the, my wife was juggling looking after our daughter with her job, and whilst I need to be here in the office to do this show and, you know, the work that I was doing with the team. And it was so tough, and it continues to be tough on her. And I could see there were moments where I said to her, I said recently, you're like a superhero, because I personally think I couldn't have done it, you know, like managing her full-time job and looking after our daughter 2 days a week. But even then, those 2 days a week, you know, to do both is something's going to give, right? As well. And I do think we need to find a balance. And there has been conversations, by the way, in her own organization that she's been overlooked because they've seen, you know, Tash, you're looking after the kid right now. We didn't want to add any more stress onto your load, so we're not going to discuss this new role with you. So I'm already seeing it play out, you know, even in my own family with my wife, and she was really upset about, you know, being overlooked just because she's busy at home with the kid and her job doesn't mean she wants to be overlooked for new opportunities in the organization. And I saw that and I was thinking, wow, I can only imagine on scale how this is happening all over the world now, where women are being disadvantaged because of that.
Yeah.
Have you started making any movements on that internally? I know it's quite a big issue. No one really has the answers right now.
I don't think, you know, we do have all the answers yet. I had a great conversation a week or so ago with Professor Henrietta O'Connor, who was actually my supervisor for my doctorate research, which was into women's psychological attachment to work and how that impacts their work and motherhood choices. And with you know, sort of the head of Hydric Consulting, Ian Tomlinson-Rowe, and another HR director as well. And I think at the moment, the fact is, we're only at a stage where we're realising that the evidence is there to support the fears that I have had. And we've got to think how that is going to play its way out. I think at SUEZ, I don't think we'll be going down a path where we'd have people working full-time at home. Mm-hmm. Our culture is built on the interaction of our people. I think social interaction is really, really important, probably because I'm a doctor of social science. I see the importance of that, not just on careers, but on people's psychological well-being as well. So, you know, we're only 10 months into this new way of working. When we've had, you know, 100 years or more of the other way, I don't think anyone wants to go back to where we were. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, if we're going to have a hybrid model, we do need to take some time to think through how we make that work for everybody.
Yeah, the model itself needs to be inclusive for everyone. And I think all of the concerns that you're expressing, I'm hearing it from all of your peers, as you can imagine, on a daily basis, specifically around this exact topic as well. So no one seems to have the answer, but I think over the next few months or years, as you said, we're going to start to see how this is going to play out as well. I know another thing that you've spoken about before is kind of meeting the future agile agenda, especially in the new way of working. Have you already started moving on that, or was you already in a position where you were building that sort of system and process in the organization?
At SUEZ, we've got a lot of people, you know, over 4,000 of our people have to carry on doing the job that they did before, out there in our sites and actually out on the streets with regards to sort of, for instance, municipal collection and industrial and commercial collection services. So that's hard to change. But I think sometimes people use the term agile working in a very narrowly defined way, and that it's about flexible working, or it's about working at home or in the office, and that debate. When actually, for me, agile working is much more comprehensive than that. It's about how work gets done in an organisation, what the tasks are that need to be done in an organisation, and how they can be better done as part of a whole system. You know, we might get away from having job descriptions, you know, role profiles describing what generally that role might undertake, rather than a list of tasks in a job description. You know, that even in itself opens up agility in the way that work is assigned to people, or projects. And actually, I think, a lot of balanced matrix organizations are starting to work around, assigning people more agilely to different tasks and different projects than what we used to see previously in, more bureaucratically structured organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of work to do there as well. And, eliminating waste from the tasks that we do. I think during COVID, we became very good at prioritizing, didn't we? We turned a lot off.
We just didn't need to do, yeah. Which is like we used to do that because of the sake of doing that. There was no real reason why we were doing it. Yeah, you're right.
We've got to ask ourselves, well, do we really need to turn those things back on?
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of lean at SUEZ and a lot of systems thinking. So we do look to eliminate non-value added tasks, etc. in our approach. And I think we can do a lot more of that as organisations moving forward.
I'm seeing a lot of companies, one that comes to mind like Siemens, who are already really far down that agenda of just removing hierarchy, job titles, and it's really task-based. And the only thing that was really holding them back beforehand was people being in a physical location. So now COVID's here, a lot of people working remotely. I'm even seeing it with my own team, because I have people working remotely where they're now involved in particular projects where beforehand, just because of that, by design, their job title per se, or the hierarchy in the company, wouldn't have been there. But given we're working now on task-based, we're bringing different sets of skills and together, where it doesn't matter if your role, your title, is kind of the diverse perspective and experience you have that you can bring to the table. So I do think this has also accelerated that. So I think you made a very good point there, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty exciting for organizations moving forward to work on task-based, project-based, as opposed to I work in this function. And that's
what can I say, Chris? You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Dynamic deployment.
Dynamic deployment. Is that how you've coined it?
That's how I articulate it.
I love that. Dynamic deployment. I haven't heard that before, so that sounds great. I'll make sure whenever I use it, I'll quote you. But let me take it back for a second. How are you through all of this, Tracey? Because it's been quite a tough time, right, for yourself and your peers. How have you made sure you can take care of your own mental health and well-being during all? What are some of the things you're doing? Because you got to put your own oxygen mask on first, right?
That's it, 100%. I say that very often. I think, having done some really big and demanding jobs in the past, you do learn, what the sort of triggers are for yourself. When you're getting a little bit tired or a little bit irritable or, feeling a bit tearful. And you're bound to get like that when you're working, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, certainly at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think also for me, because I feel so passionately about the preservation of human life, and I've spent so much of my life trying to help that cause, I really did step back into life-saving mode, and I was very, very driven with regards to getting ourselves into a good place, and good procedures and governance in place to manage COVID. I think for me, it sounds a bit boring, but just going out for a walk really helps me. We've got a little forest not far from our house here. It's a 5-mile loop, and I just go and walk around it in circles. I wrote most of my doctorate walking around Salsey Forest, with big wads of paper, reading as I went along. Got a bit of a reputation. Everyone always thinks I'm going to fall over or trip. It's probably not the best thing to do as a chief of health and safety, but it works for me. So yeah, a nice walk, and just engaging with your family in whatever way that you can, whether that's Zoom or I FaceTime my mum every single night at 10:30. And we just have a normal chat.
Mm-hmm.
And switch off.
I don't think there's boring at all, by the way. I think that, and as you probably know, there's been a lot of research around getting outside and the impact that has on mental health. Just going for a walk is huge. I used to do it with my team when I used to see kind of there's times where I could see that it's taken a toll on the team. And I would just be like, all right, that's it. Everyone, the phone's down, tools down, we're going for a walk. And we'll just,
Well, I've just
go for a walk and come back refreshed and recharged. Just something simple like that. So
I've just had our internal HR conference that we have every year. Last year we had 2 fantastic days in Bristol, did lots of really great transformation work and had lots of fun. And this year we couldn't. So we took it all online. But as part of that, I said to 64 people that were being part of my HR conference, right, I want you to all take a day off during the working day and just do whatever makes you feel good about yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. And take a photo of it or do a quick video of it. And at our HR conference, we'll share it. And we had those all put into a video compilation. And what fantastic things my people do, whether they went for their hair done or they read a book or they fed their pigs.
Wherever it is that makes them happy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think we need to remember as leaders that some people will not take the initiative to do that themselves. They're almost waiting for permission.
Yeah.
And I am always very conscious of saying, you have my permission if you're asking for it. It's dark at the moment, isn't it? In the morning, at night, well, take an hour in the day and go and get some, sunlight.
Need some vitamin D, especially right now, to keep our immune systems well. So we definitely need some sunshine. You are right, though. I literally, before a few hours ago, I had a call with my co-founder, and I said, I'm very concerned that a lot of our employees haven't taken their holiday during the last few months because they've been so, we've been obviously, like everyone, we've been scrambling to kind of, no one knows where things are going. So people are just naturally not taking time off. So I was saying, before December, I was like, we have to just, not expect them just to take it themselves and then really encourage it and say, look, you need to take some time out. So, yes, I know there's a million things to do, but you need to take the time off. As well. And I only noticed that recently. I wish I would have caught it earlier. I didn't realize that. So it's a very good point, because you realize they won't do it themselves. So we do need to bring that up as employers and make sure.
And also, as leaders, to show what you're doing in that space, so people see that, yes, it is okay. People are always checking, whether their behaviours and actions are what leaders want. So it is about walking the walk as a leader and saying, well, sorry, I won't be, I'll be back in half an hour because I'm taking a quick walk around the block. That's okay.
Yeah. I think my problem is I haven't taken any time off, so maybe I take some time off myself as well. So it's probably partly my fault, like you're saying, as well. I've been full steam ahead, so I've definitely I've definitely learned a lot on this call. But listen, I know I can't keep you forever, but thank you so much for taking the time out to join me. If there's sort of one parting piece of advice you'd give to your peers, what would that be, especially during these times? And then where's the best place for everyone to connect with you if they want to reach out and say hello?
What's the one bit of advice? I think with regards to COVID, we are going to come out of the other side of it. Of that, there is no doubt. So, dig deep, look after yourselves. But I think when we get into the spring next year, I think we should be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel. If it was around career advice, I would say a couple of things. One is, you use every day as a learning day. And, don't have other people tell you what you can't achieve, because everything is achievable if you're determined enough to achieve it. Because I've certainly had people try and put me off what I wanted to be the next choices for me. And their hesitancy or advice hasn't really borne out. So I've achieved the unachievable, most people say. I think, where can you find me? Well, I'm on social media a lot. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I'm on Twitter. So please do feel free to reach out and connect and start a conversation.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for sharing your journey experience. It means a lot to us and to everyone listening, which is why we started the show in the first place. And congratulations to you and the team for all the great work you've done so far. I know it's just the beginning and we've got a long way to go, but keep up the amazing work. And for everyone listening, Thanks for tuning in. If you click on the link below, there'll be a link to Tracey's LinkedIn profile, so you can connect with her on LinkedIn there as well. And if you're new to the podcast, please like, comment, share, subscribe via your favorite platform. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day, Tracey, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye-bye.